Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day.
This is called the nose radome, and inside here is a type of radar called an inverse synthetic aperture radar. We've all seen movies and TV shows where they depict the radar screen. There's usually a round thing that's got a green line, goes around, and then these little green lips come up, and that's radar, right? Yeah, but that's old school stuff. This is an inverse synthetic aperture radar. It provides the operator with actual imagery of the target they're painting. Precise enough that they, as a trained operator, can distinguish between one type or class of ship and another, or different kinds of buildings or different kinds of aircraft. It's not just a blob, an anomalous blob on the screen. A quirk of the system, though, is because it's an inverse aperture, the imagery is actually upside down. And it's a Doppler-fed radar, so the image is doing one of these numbers. So it takes some training to be able to interpret them, but they do, okay? And inside here, these two doors open up similar to here for the nose wheel. And there's an electro-optical turret that can be lowered from there. It's got some very sophisticated camera systems, which include an infrared capability that provides not just white blobs on the screen again, but actual imagery. I'll show you some pictures of some inside that are precise enough that the operator can easily distinguish between an A6 and an F-14. I mean, it's crystal clear how precise the imagery is. Okay, it doesn't take much training at all. Okay, now let's get back there on the garage. This is the bomb bay. This is where torpedoes or depth bombs would have been carried. It's a lot deeper than it appears. It's about that high up inside the belly there. You carry up to 8 Mark 46 torpedoes, or 6 Mark 50s because they were larger, and they would be used for hunting submarines. The mix would be either all torpedoes or all depth bombs, depending upon the mission. Out here on the end of each wing are weapons mounts. You see where the orange screw heads are? There's on this outer wing and on the other outer wing. Those are areas where a thing called a hard point would be mounted. This is a hard point. That's just a fuel tank there, don't be that's from the hard points that's where you carry missiles or mines will be carried on those. Okay? Yeah. Now let's go back here to the belly. Called the sonobuoy launch area. The sonobuoy is the primary sensor that is used to acoustically through sound to identify, localize, and track submarines. Okay, so these holes are, I can't reach the top of it. So the sonobuoy is about that tall, about that big around. So up to 48 sonobuoys could be loaded before the aircraft took off into the belly here. And there are also on the other side 3 of these doors, or 3 of these chutes have doors at the bottom. The rest of them are free fall chutes, or just open to the air. Okay, so the buoys are just launched right from them. The 3 that are on that side, they're accessible from the inside. So sonobuoys can be launched internally. There's an additional rack, another 48 that's carried inside the airplane so they could make adjustments to the settings on the sonar buoys before they were launched. Okay? And then the last thing outside, there's the tail. That stinger that's sticking out there is called a magnetic anomaly detector. Large metallic objects, like a submarine, cause the Earth's magnetic lines of flux to bend toward the sun. That sensor, the magnetic anomaly detector, can sense those minor variations in the Earth's magnetic lines of flux. It's a very short-range sensor. When that was being employed, the aircraft would have been flying at 200 feet. Yeah. Not 2,000, not 20,000, 200. Yep. Okay, now we go inside.
Maybe that's where the pilot sits.
Orion. Everybody take a big deep breath.
Smells like diesel.
They all smell just like this. It's so comforting. I love it.
I don't even smell the same.
I like that. All right. So, this is called, this long opening we refer to as the tube, and this is, you'll notice there's a grab bar that runs the entire length of the tube. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, still to this day uses P3s as hurricane hunters, so they're not afraid of bad weather. I've clung to this many a time to getting from one place to the next inside these airplanes. So yeah, this is a real lifesaver, believe me. And there's another one here for the people who are working in this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up in the flight station and work our way aft. It's like not designed for tours, sorry. So you'll have to take turns to look up into the flight station, but still sort of cluster in that area because like there's 3 different places I need to talk to, all up in the pointy part of the airplane. Okay? All right, let me go first.
I tend to stay behind. I can exit that way.
Around up there.
Oh, you're actually
Yeah, I was 20 years.
Okay. I was my first tour was in 47.
Was it?
47. So I was an air crew, but I rode a lot on them back and forth exercises. And
So you're a ground pounder?
I was in one of the hotel guys. So
Yeah.
but we did a deployment out to Alaska.
Emergency exit.
That was something.
Yeah.
I envied them being under this thing for 8 hours at a time.
Yeah.
These, all the ones in the front.
Pretty excited to see
These are so
finally get back in.
Yeah.
steering wheel.
We
It's a
acquired
little
this
bit
about
different.
7 years ago. My old
the
rag was 31. Yeah, 30 had it at the time, and they flew it here.
Some of the super special buttons.
Boom,
they would
this
put
this
these
last
over
flight
to
was
just make
right
sure
here.
nobody touches it on accident. So they have something like that. Oh, that's really cool.
and you can
We give, yeah, should we
Hey.
give them to come up here?
Next.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry, that's just the way it is.
Oh, that's okay.
Pretty fascinating.
Just sit down there if you want to.
So the flight engineer would sit here,
Yeah.
and then he would just basically monitor the engine and flight systems.
Heck.
Yeah, I rode all the way to San Diego, sitting on that bench once.
Gosh, I can only imagine. I assume those are the fun buttons up there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can see the flight station, there's an awful lot going on up there. There are literally hundreds of buttons and knobs and dials and switches and indicators and toggles and things to push, pull, poke, and turn. The left-hand seat was where the pilot sat. On the far right, the co-pilot. In the center is where the flight engineer sat. With 4 turboprop engines, in older systems like this, it took 3 people to fly the airplane. 3 people. 3. Yep. 2 pilots and a flight engineer. So, a typical ASW mission, anti-submarine warfare, will last about 10 to 12 hours. Surveillance and reconnaissance missions, depending upon where you were, would be average 8 or so. When the aircraft was transiting, then the pilot was the patrol plane commander and they were in charge. Once the aircraft got on station and began to perform the tactical mission, then the tactical coordinator, who sat right here at this station, was in charge. They became the mission commander. So, the TACO, the tactical coordinator, their job was to figure out how to best employ all the sensors on the aircraft, the data coming from those sensors, and the experience and expertise of their crew members to figure out how to best solve whatever the tactical problem was, that particular mission. Okay? All that was on their shoulders. The person that sat on this side was essentially in training to become a tactical coordinator, but while they were doing that, they were also in charge of navigation and communication. So all the radio traffic, whether it was voice or data, encrypted or in the clear, went through this person right here, plus also responsible for navigation and keeping track of where the aircraft was at all times and making sure it didn't go in bad places. This aircraft had very few self-defense capabilities. It relied on other people taking care of it.
Is she able to sit in that one? She needs to see that.
If you're whispering when this plane was running, nobody would hear you at all because it was loud in here. It was very loud and cold.
Yeah.
Cold. Also, I mean, the floors beneath each of the stations were heated, so your feet didn't get too cold. Because you'd be sitting there for hours at a time.
And that way,
Yep.
also you just
Okay.
get up.
What we got?
This is a sextant. You know what that's for?
Navigation.
Celestial navigation. If some of the important navigation systems failed, then the NavCom would pull this slide down up here, up there, and look through this eyepiece right there, and it could be used to take very precise measurements of the angle between the horizon and the sun or the moon, certain stars, depending upon the time of day and time of year, coupled with the very precise and accurate time, and then some calculations to figure out where in the world you are. This technology dates back to the 1600s. This is a fancy one, obviously, but celestial navigation. That's how the old-time ships would figure out where they were in the world, how to get from one place to the next. Mathematics is important. Math is important. Okay. All these bays could have been filled with electronics, generating a lot of heat. Cold in here. Every single piece of electronics, not like an entire bay or a big section. Every piece had its own circuit breaker. So there's a big panel here. There's an even larger panel up there in the flight station. There's a panel here. There's a big panel there on the left of the main load center. There's more panels in the back. You needed to know where every single circuit breaker was for every piece of gear. If something went wrong, if something started smoking, you had to be able to pull that out and not turn off anything else. Yeah. Okay, let me get in here. So this next part here, these are where the sensor operators work. The non-acoustic sensors and the acoustic sensors. So you notice that by that term, it was really focused on sound, focused on so this was like the acoustic guys, and then not the acoustic guy. All those sensors that didn't have anything to do with sound were this person's responsibility. So the radar, infrared, the entire electro-optical systems, and the fancy radar warning and identification system, the magnetic anomaly detector here in the corner, all that was operated by this person, the sensor 3, the non-acoustic operator. Okay? On this side, this is where the acoustic operator sat. Sensor 1, Sensor 2, that was the senior person. This was a person in training to hopefully become a Sensor 1. These are the folks, when they're hunting for submarines, they could tell you through the analysis of sound, well, is it a ship? A whale? There are things called snapping shrimp and croakers. Is it a submarine? Yeah, lots of people bump their head. That's why they're passing. That's why they're passing. Yeah, honestly, that's why they're passing. Yeah, so if it was a submarine, then they could tell you it was a friendly submarine or a hostile submarine. If it's hostile, what type, which class, how deep in the water it was, which direction it was traveling, how fast it was traveling, all through the analysis of sound as it was transmitted to them from those sensors, the sonar buoys. Frequency versus time is the realm that they worked in. Okay? Oh, also, if you were the senior person, the sensor 1, and you're transiting, and you got nothing else to do, we got to kill some time, I want to take a nap, yeah, you, get out. I'm laying down here. This was the perfect place because the floor was heated. It was nice and warm.
Oh yeah, that
you could stretch out.
Spot.
Nobody would bump into you walking around. You're protected by the chairs.
Good
Believe me,
it
was a primo spot. I've napped there plenty of times.
What was your job when you did that? You were the senior. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, back here we've got what they call the search stores.
Scoot over so I can take that.
Okay, so I mentioned when we were outside, so the sonar buoys, the sensors, we loaded into the belly of the airplane before the aircraft took off. Once you took off, you couldn't mess with them, and there were certain settings that were entered into the buoys before they were loaded. And those settings were based upon what the predicted water conditions were going to be in the area where you're going to be operating. But the ocean is a very dynamic environment. Stuff changes all the time. So you get there, the very first sonar buoy that would be dropped was called a bathythermograph buoy. Basically, it was a big thermometer, measured the temperature from the surface down to 2,500 feet, constantly sending the information back to the sensor operators. They would compare the formula then, do they need to update anything? So maybe sometimes some of the buoys that you've got loaded in your belly aren't going to be primo anymore. The settings aren't going to work. So that's why you carried an additional store that you could adapt. And this is the container they come in. Right here on the sonar, this is a sample of one of the models of sonar buoys. This is where the settings could be changed corresponding to this area right here. So you make the settings change without opening it up. And then open one of these 3 pressurized chutes. Remember, there's a door at the bottom of these. So you could open it up in flight without depressurizing the aircraft. Nobody risks getting sucked down that hole. That would hurt.
Yeah, I imagine.
And then before you loaded the buoy, or before you, in this part, see this is threaded? a command actuation device called a CAD. It looked like a big fat aluminum shotgun shell, no pellets in it. That would be threaded into here, okay? And then this is slid down inside there. I'm not going to let it go because it's hard to pull back out without the CAD to hold on to. Closed, and then it could be launched from this panel right here.
So
Or the taco could do it up at his station. Okay, so when this is when this is launched out of here, depending upon the buoy, it's depending on the model. There's either a drogue chute, or in some instances, the old school ones had these look like aluminum, weird-looking little propeller deals sticking out the top, and they start flapping around. There's the drogue chute, like a small parachute, not designed to slow it down as much as to orient it properly so that the base always hit the water first. Okay, and then a couple different things start happening. The base broke off intentionally, and the hydrophone, the fancy underwater microphone part, which is down here, it drops out of the casing. There's a big spool of cable here, and then depending upon the settings that you had entered in here, it's going to descend to a depth of either 90 feet, 400, 1,000, in some instances 1,500 feet deep.
that's a lot.
While that's going on at that end, up on this end, there is a saltwater activated battery. The saltwater acted like an electrolyte, and it charged the system. That's the battery there. It charged the system. It caused a CO2 cartridge to go off. It inflated a flotation collar up here at the top. Had a built-in antenna in it. Here's the processor and your transmitter. Starts transmitting to the airplane. Boom. There you go. Up different parts of the mission, like if you were searching, trying to localize or track. If you're searching, you could use deploy up to 16 of these things at a time. Tracking, hopefully you're just doing it one at a time to space out your buoys. Trying to be covert all the time. You didn't want the submarine to know you're looking for it, because then it would go evasive and make the problem much more difficult to solve. Okay. What else? There is right here on this seat. This is where the ordnancemen sat when they still had them as part of the crew. This is the person who would then take care of all the sonobuoy stuff or any of those weapons that were loaded, or he'd be part of the team to load external weapons. The airplane's crammed full of electronics, so in-flight technician sat right there. Back here, this is the galley. So, with respect to the galley, you can figure this is like a small house. This is the bedroom. This folded down, and there'll be a mattress on it. So here's the bedroom. Got two beds. This is a combination living room and dining room. Here's the kitchen. Got a little refrigerator. There's a convection oven. Big thermos. This is the Navy. There must be coffee. You can plug in your electric skillet here, make food. All the comforts of home.
In the fridge.
Yeah, eat at the table or eat at your station. You can eat up here. Yeah, you can crawl up here if you want. So, what are we missing? A what?
The bathroom.
What?
A bathroom?
A bathroom room.
Where would they go?
Bathroom.
Oh,
you mean a head? I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, the head. This is the head. Do you know? That's the right word, yes? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know it's a head.
Yeah.
You know why it's called a head?
Usually they kept it at the head of the ship.
Why? Yes, but why?
Well, I mean, that's pretty foul business.
I know all this stuff. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that the usage of that word to describe a bathroom in the Navy and for the Marines too dates back like to the days of wooden sailing ships. Think about an old-fashioned square-rigged wooden sailing ship. Where's a good place to go to the bathroom? I mean, you're on these things for days, weeks, months at a time. A couple hundred people got to go to the bathroom. So we start at the stern, the back end of the ship. We've got a raised platform. There's a railing going around the back of it. Good spot to go to the bathroom. Which way's the wind blowing from? Behind you. So that, like, nah, that'd be pretty messy. Nah, the stern's not a good spot. What about along the sides of the ship, on the flanks? Big long open area, again has a railing. So if I were standing on the edge and looking straight down an old-fashioned wooden sailing ship, I don't see water. The water's over there because the hulls are rounded. So that's a mess. That's a mess waiting to happen right there. Now, so again, not a good spot. Up at the bow of the ship in the front, in the pointy part, below the bowsprit, where the figurehead is, that carved wooden statue deal, right? On either side of the bowsprit, on the side of the figurehead, there are two, like, balcony-like kind of areas with holes in the floor so water drains through them. That's the place to go, believe me. The wind is blowing everything away. The winds are constantly washing off the hull. Hey, Chief, I gotta go to the head. That's where you go. Oh, yes, anyways. That was a lengthy explanation. This is the head. Sorry. So let's set the stage. This is an airplane. Is there a window in there you can open? No, of course, that's silly. No, there's no window in there you can open. Guess what? There's no exhaust fan either.
No.
And nothing in there flushes. There's no under the deck holding tank for effluvia. It's what's there's there all flight long. There's not even a little shelf in the corner with one of those bottles of spritzy air freshener stuff. Nope. What we got in here, there are two devices. One that you stood in front of to use, one that you sat on to use. The one that you stood in front of is a metal cylinder about that big around. And it's about that tall. Had a rounded top with one side had a little flap door on it. And you stood in front of it to use it. Pretty common, right? At the end of every flight, the junior person on the crew had to unstrap it and take it out and dump it in the grass. You can't do that anymore. And bring it back and then they're done. Okay? So the other device that's in there, no exhaust, no spritzies, no window. One that you sat on had a bowl under the seat. Yeah. So if you used that one, you had to empty it yourself and clean it and put it back and buy the crew a case of beer. That was an unwritten yet strictly enforced rule. Emergency use only. In my day, if you used that, within 24 hours, the entire squadron knew about it. Hey, did you hear about, no, 20 years, I never once sat down inside one of these. Honestly, never did. It was a rare occurrence. Nowadays, there are more women on the cruise. I've been told, I have no personal knowledge of this, that women can use to stand up. You're flexible, and you can do that. But I think more sit down now. But the P3s are almost all gone. The Navy is finished transitioning now. Is the P8 Poseidon is based on a Boeing 737, much larger, and I've been told they've got better facility. Yeah, right. Yeah. So there we are. There's our P3.